Consumption has increased for the consumer. Where is it possible? Now, what is this graphical method? In order to understand graphical method, multiplier mechanism. So how can things multiply in the economy? Is there any magic formula for it? Consumption initially is at a low level. It's almost equal to zero. Good morning and welcome to the last and final session of Chapter 10, Determination of Income and Employment. Now, in this session, we are going to look into the graphs and into the various factors of how income and employment becomes a crucial factor in macroeconomics. So just going forward, we are going to understand the graphical method today. Now, what is this graphical method? In order to understand graphical method, we first need to understand the linear equation or the relationship that is going to be told in this class. Any linear relationship can be summarized using the formula y is equal to a plus bx. Now, a is an independent variable and B is a dependent variable. So when I say a linear relationship, there is some matter of connection between the variables here. Now if you look here, X is the variable factor, A is an independent constant and B is the dependent factor here. So any linear relationship can be summarized using the formula or the method called as y is equal to ax plus b. Now, moving forward, so we are also going to understand consumption function using the graphical representation. Let's have a quite close look into the graphical representation of how it is being represented. Now, if you look into the graph clearly here, you would see that there is a tangent line that is being drawn. This is that factor here where we have drawn the tangent. That is representing an equation C is equal to A plus BY, where the value of B is anywhere between 0 and 1. So now what are we trying to talk here is that we are trying to talk a consumption function in a graphical manner. So the value of consumption for a consumer will be between 0 to 1. So we assume that the value is somewhere between 0 to 1. That means the consumer will not exactly strike 0 where he'll say that I will not consume at all. Neither he will keep consuming to the maximum value. So he will have a determination point. He will have an objectivity to lie between the 0 and 1 altogether. So that is what we are going to understand from this graphical representation. So you see a line that is tangent and it starts moving up at a 45 degrees angle. So tan 45, the value is equal to 1. So now if you start understanding, let me not go into trigonometry too much. What I am trying to make you understand is that if you see this factor from an initial point O, it starts moving up to a particular level and then the line keeps moving upward. That means consumption initially is at a low level. It's almost equal to 0 but not exactly 0. After some time what happens is that the consumption will start moving up in a tangent manner, that is in a 45 degrees projection altogether. Moving forward, so we are going to talk about investment function graphical relation. Now, before we go into investment, we need to understand what is this investment all about. Investment is possible only when you have an income. After the income will come your consumption. After consumption will be your savings. Then comes the investment. So this is a very, very important factor altogether. So let me just write down the equation for you to make you understand how does this investment comes. Now, income is represented as Y. Y is equal to consumption minus savings. Now you put it the other way around also, S minus C or C minus S. Now if you start understanding the relationship here, after consumption, after the savings is done, then we will come into investment. Is investment a direct process or an indirect process. Now if you look here, there is a word that is given here which is called as induced investment. What do you mean by induced investment? An investment which is done by itself. So I would like to represent it as I dash. Now for example, if I is equal to investment, I dash is equal to induced investment. Induced investment means an investment which is done by default. We are not working for it. It is going to happen by nature, by default itself. So how does this investment happen? Let's say that you are going to earn an annual income of 10 lakh rupees. This is your annual income. Out of this 10 lakh rupees, let's say you are going to save 2 lakh rupees, that is 20% of your money as saving. How does this happen? Either through PF or through some insurance or through some policies. What you are trying to do here is that the company itself will create an induced factor, that is by default the savings will happen. The savings will happen beyond a particular point. Initially it will be at zero. You will not start with any investment. Slowly you start investing and it goes up all the way. So that is where you will start understanding that induced investment. Now autonomous investment is again the same kind of factor. By default automatically you are doing it. Now in induced, at some point what will happen here is that you will be forced to get into the savings part altogether. So you will think in your mind, till some point I have been doing investment, now I will force myself to save. I will force myself to get into the investment part altogether. So I will start investing money. But here it's an autonomous investment, so you don't have to worry much. Now what will happen here is that in autonomous, when I use this word I dash here, what I'm trying to say here is that it is a flat investment. Whether you do it or not, automatically investment is going to happen. Now for example, if you are going to take into picture your PF, your gratuity or your dearness allowance or any kind of allowances that are being given by the government, that is an autonomous way. It happens by itself. It will keep on happening in the straight track. So you will only get an investment which is on the straight line. It is not going to change. You are not going to see a variation like this. So that is what you mean by an autonomous investment altogether. Now moving forward, aggregate demand in graphical representation. Now if you look here, what is aggregate demand, consumption and investment? Let us try to understand each one of this concept clearly before going into the graph. Now consumption means what the consumer consumes after getting his income, which means what is he going to intake. Investment, after the savings is over, what is that extra money that he is going to invest into land, labor, or let's say into some infrastructure or asset. Then using these two factors, we are going to talk about aggregate demand. Consumption leads to demand. The more the consumer consumes, he will start increasing his demand factor altogether. So when you see here on a general basis compared to income versus expenditure, now what happens is that moment the income keeps increasing, the expenditure will also keep increasing. Initially the expenditure will be on the lower side, but as the income increases, the expenditure will start going up. That is a quite normal function to understand altogether. Why? Because initially for the consumer, the income is limited. He cannot spend as much of money what he wants. But as it goes up slowly, the expenditure will also go up because he is earning more and more. So on the x-axis, when you see the income factor, initially it is on the lower side. Now the income keeps on increasing. When the income keeps on increasing, automatically the expenditure also starts going up. If the expenditure goes up, the aggregate demand curve will also go up. That is what is very, very important. Why? Because when you set that aggregate demand curve, the aggregate demand curve will talk about the consumption factors in the economy. More and more people consume, demand factor will go up, the production will also go up, and the economy will also start making progress. So in any country, what we try to understand is that the income versus expenditure. If the people move towards the factor of saving more rather than expenditure, automatically the aggregate demand will fall down. So it is for the government to start ensuring that people increase their consumption. Some way they have to bring in a balance factor through which the money is being spent on the economy. More the expenditure, more the demand, more the growth in terms of the economy. So this is what we are trying to represent here through the aggregate demand and consumption factors. Now moving forward, the next one where we are going to talk about supply side of the macroeconomic equilibrium. Now what is supply for us? Now if you look here, the supply side is on two factors, consumption and income. Right. Now if you look here on the x-axis, you will have the income factor. On the y-axis, you have the consumption factor. Now there is a point where we are going to represent y is equal to c, and there we are going to represent it with another equation. C is equal to a plus by. This is nothing but the linear equation. We would have seen it in the first slide in this session. We would have written something called as the linear equation. So this is that linear equation that we are going to write. Now y is equal to c. Income is equal to consumption. This is what the basic economics will talk about. Whatever you are earning as a person, you will try to consume that earning. So income is equal to consumption. Now we also have something called marginal propensity to consumption or consume, that is equal to G by H. G by H is a gradient. Now how to explain the gradient factor? It is quite simple. We are just going back to the basic trigonometry, trying to address the sides. This is one side of the consumption factor and this is the other side. So we are just going to represent it by two letters, G by H. Now you don't have to go too much into mathematics. You just have to put the curve symbols as G by H. You can probably use your own letters or own values, but then these are just representing the two sides of the line altogether. So what are we trying to prove here is that when the supply side starts moving up, that means to say that there is a demand that is moving it up. More the demand, more the supply, more the consumption, and then we also talk about the income factor. Moment the income propels up, the demand will go up because I have money to spend, I have money to consume. When I have the capacity to consume more, the economy will also supply more. So automatically you see that there is a curve line that is rising upwards at a 45 degrees angle, saying that y is equal to c. I am trying to spend my entire income on consumption. So that is where the supply side of macro equilibrium comes into picture. Moving forward, we will also try to understand the ex ante factor, equilibrium of ex ante aggregated demand supply. Now, we all know that ex ante means something that is planned. So now, what is going to happen here is that you see an equilibrium point here called E. And on the y-axis, you have the consumption. On the x-axis, you have the income. Now, income and consumption are two factors which needs to meet an equilibrium. They cannot keep on going on a parallel line basis. So you see two lines here. The first line going up on this factor, the second line consumption factor going up here. They both meet here at the equilibrium point. That is where we say the ex ante is coming, because that is the equilibrium point. The average propensity to consume consume is kept at the value 1, and that is the value, or that is the point at which we need to get into a balanced state. That is what I have planned in my mind. This much amount I need to keep under like a savings kind of a philosophy. So this is that equilibrium point where consumption and income will balance each other. If they don't balance, they just keep moving as a parallel factor, then theoretically speaking, there will not be a point where there can be a planning, because all the income would have just got exhausted altogether. So keeping all this in mind, we need to understand the equilibrium point. If you don't reach the equilibrium point, automatically it will fall down. We will not get into the ex ante position at all. Then when you start recognizing that I was not able to save anything of my income, that is because you were not able to strike a balance between consumption and income altogether. So that is what we are trying to address here graphically in the slide altogether. Now moving forward, effect of an autonomous change in aggregate demand on income and output. Now let us try to understand what is it. Change in investment and change in consumption. This is very, very important for us to know. What will happen by the change in consumption? Let me just draw two simple lines for you. Now if I say this as the consumption line, and if I am going to give you one more graph where the consumption moves up, if you can see here, the consumption has moved from a point X to a point Y. What am I trying to do here is that there is a change in consumption. I am just trying to represent this factor, saying that consumption has increased for the consumer. Where is it possible? Let us look at the practical example. Some years back in India, people did not even have the income that they could afford buying a TV or a fridge or a laptop or any kind of FMCG goods, because they were all considered to be luxury. But today, the current scenario in India is that every single house will look at all these items as basic need. Every house today has got a TV, has got a fridge. Almost every house will have a washing machine. Almost every house will have a desktop, laptop, mobile phone. Now what is happening here is that the need to consume more, the need to go up in life, the need to enjoy all the basic facilities has gone up. So that means the change in consumption will show that the aggregate demand is going up with the increase in income. Now that is why what happens in India is that India becomes the base or the ground for most of the foreign companies to invest, because they know that Indians are hungry to invest, Indians are hungry to consume. So whenever a new product is being launched in India, definitely our country will prove as a market for larger consumption, because people are ready to try. They are interested to try on all the new products. So what is happening with the increase in income? They want to try everything that is new in the market. Now the second factor also, change in investment, is also something like that. 20 years back in India, people did not even know about insurance or mutual funds or share markets to that great extent. But today, when you look at the youngsters, they are hungry to invest in almost every single sector. They are ready to invest in commodities, they are ready to invest in shares, in mutual funds, in insurance, in unit-linked plan, in fixed deposits. So there is a change in investment cycle altogether. Why is that change in investment happening altogether? Because people are seeing that there is an increase in income that is happening. So moment that increase in income is happening, the increase in investment will also go up. So increase in investment will also lead to an aggregate demand in the economy, a push in the economy altogether. So that is why we say that this increase factor will matter a lot when it comes to the macroeconomic stability. Now, moving forward, we are also going to talk about the multiplier mechanism. So how can things multiply in the economy? Is there any magic formula for it? Absolutely not. The multiplier happens because of these final situations. That is, the production of final goods employs factors such as land, labor, capital and entrepreneurship. So today, if a company wants to increase, wants to go on the multiplier mechanism, what they typically tend to do is that increase the land, labor, capital and the entrepreneurship, which means more production, which means more output, and automatically the economy is pushing up. So that is what we mean by saying production of final goods. The second factor, in the absence of direct taxes or subsidies, the total value of the final goods output is distributed among the factors of production, that is wages or labor. Why I am trying to say you this is that, now if you look into countries like the Middle East, like in Dubai, in Muscat, in Qatar and all those kind of places, what happens is because they don't have taxes, the money is distributed again in the form of wages to the labor. The money is again distributed in the form of benefit to the people. So in absence of indirect taxes or subsidies or any kind of thing, the total value of the production is again redistributed back into the economy, to the people, to the interest factor or to rent or to a wages or labor, wherever that factor starts fitting inside. So what is happening here is that money is getting recirculated back into the economy. But in India, on the contrary, we have lot of taxation factors. So what happens is that every single rupee earned by a wage labor, he has to pay the tax. Whether be a white collared person or a blue collared person, the money is going to be taxed by the government. So that is the reason we do not have that much of disposable income with us. We are not able to multiply the money fast like how they do it in the Middle East countries. Second factor, whatever is left over is appropriated by the entrepreneur as profit. After this deduction of all these things, whatever remains, I call it as profit. I, as the owner of the company, the entrepreneur of this country, I will call this as profit. But that profit might not be sufficient for me. That is what I am trying to tell again. Why? Because if you look here, I might have decided that I at least need to make 50% profit, but ultimately I would have only made about 5% profit. So this is where the challenge is coming into picture. For me as an entrepreneur, I want to see higher range of profit. But what am I getting is only 5% because there are taxes, wages, land, labor, interest, everything I have to pay. Only the thing that remains from all this factor will come back to me as profit. The last but not the least, thus the sum total of aggregate factor payments in the economy, national income, is equal to aggregate value of the final goods, that is the GDP. So after all this factor, putting all the aggregate factors together, what is the remaining value that we are going to get will be equal to the value of the GDP. So that is what we try to conclude, saying that after the deduction of all the external factors, the remaining value of the final goods, which is going to create an aggregate demand factor, will determine the output or the value of the GDP in the economy. Now moving forward, investment multiplier, the ratio of total increment in equilibrium value of final goods output to initial increment in autonomous expenditure is called as investment multiplier. Now let's try to understand it. The ratio of total increment in equilibrium value. So for example, if this is the equilibrium value, this point, which is, I'm going to call it as E, that equilibrium value of the final goods, whatever goods that are produced in the country in terms of output, to the initial increment of autonomous expenditure. So the initial increment that is being given in terms of land, labor, capital, that's where our expenditure is again going to come, is called as investment multiplier. Why it is coming in? Because when you see the final good versus the initial investment, what is the outcome that we are seeing? Now, for example, if I'm manufacturing a good in India and I'm exporting it outside, or when I'm going to sell it, I'm going to get at least 3 times money more, then I'm happy. But if I'm going to do the same business in some other country and I'm going to get 13 times more return on the same kind of factor, then my investment is multiplied. My investment is going at a higher rate altogether. So that is why most of the foreign institutional investors will try to seek those countries where investment can multiply fast. If they invest 1 crore rupees on a particular project today, at what rate that investment will multiply and become 10 times or 20 times of the value. So that is where that investment multiplier comes. Why? Because if the land labor capital is affordable, it's cheaper when compared to the home country, automatically the goods produced will also be of the lower value, but when you export it back, you will be able to make higher value. So that is why investment multiplier becomes a very, very important concept altogether. Moving forward, we are also going to understand the paradox of thrift. This is very, very important, and it is also in terms of understanding towards the Indian economy. Why? Because in the Indian economy, you need to understand something called as savings versus investment growth altogether. Now, in terms of savings, we tend to do at a higher level. We always want to save the maximum money. But as we tend to save more and more, we reach a position where we are going to use on the same savings. So that is why increasing the proportion of income they save, actually the total savings will not go up. It will either decline or it will remain unchanged. Why? Because beyond the point, savings will not matter you at all. So that is what I'm going to talk about as a result of paradox of thrift, which states that people will become more and more thrifty and they end up saving less as before, because initially you will be highly interested in doing the savings, but after some point when you have made enough savings, again when people talk to you about savings, the interest level starts coming down. You suddenly start finding that what is the point in saving so much of money? There has been absolutely no benefit out of it. So moment that factor starts residing into the mind of the people, we call this as paradox of thrift. So the savings level will automatically come down or will become a flattened curve altogether. Moving forward, employment level, and that too at the full employment, is the level of income that where all the factors of productions are fully employed. That means land, labor and capital is completely made utilized altogether. Now when you see in our country, there are many organizations which have got hundreds and thousands of people working, but is all of them equally employed? All of them are getting equal chances? Is the labor level satisfactory? Is the wage level satisfactory? The answer to these questions are not there. That is the reason what happens. Full employment is not being experienced by the Indian subcontinent. What we need to understand is that to the level of input, the output should also be equal. That means to whatever extent we are giving employment, there should be an income, there should be an interest, there should be a labor and wage factor together, so that every single person is able to enjoy the level of full employment. He is getting benefit for the role, for the exercise, for the amount of effort that he is putting into his job. Full employment is only possible when all the factors of production, that is land, labor and capital, are completely utilized in the production process. If they are not utilized, then we don't reach the satisfaction level at all. Now moving forward, we conclude on this particular chapter. This is the conclusion for the chapter 10, where we are trying to understand about the different factors in terms of the income and employment. Thank you once again for joining me on this wonderful session. I hope and believe that the session was interesting, educative and informative altogether. Please stay tuned, stay blessed and stay enlightened ever for the next session in economics. Thank you once again.